Allan is a very prominent business leader here in Hong Kong, a long-time resident of Hong Kong, and also a Chinese citizen. He's chairman of the Lan Kwai Fong Group, which owns and develops property not just in Lan Kwai Fong, but he's also been expanding into various Chinese cities, including Chengdu, Haikou, Wuxi, and Shanghai. He's on the board, or he's non-executive vice chairman of Wynn Macau, the gaming operator. And as you probably know, he was for a time chairman of Ocean Park and helped to revive that wonderful theme park. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have a brief conversation with Allan, and he's going to tell us about how he sees the future of Hong Kong, and then we'll open the floor to questions from you, any questions that you might have. And we have to end at 2 o'clock sharp because Allan has to catch a plane. So, Allan, one of the things that intrigued me reading your bio was that you've been a Chinese citizen since 2008. And did that mean abandoning your Canadian citizenship? And why did you do that? What was the motivation for that?
Well, basically, okay, we'll get closer.
That's good, that's good.
Basically, I woke up one morning and I thought to myself, I've been in Hong Kong for so many years. I've done so much for Hong Kong. I hardly went back to Canada. I haven't been back to Canada for 15 years and literally knew nothing before Justin Trudeau being the Prime Minister, who's kind of like a rock star. I knew very little about what was going on in Canada. If you asked me who the Prime Minister was, I really couldn't tell you because I knew who the President of China was and I knew who the Chief Executive was in Hong Kong. And so I woke up and I thought to myself, you know, it's not right for me to be a Canadian passport holder because in my heart I didn't feel I was Canadian. I've been here for, well, now 48 years, and my kids grew up here. Everyone, my family, everyone, this has always been home for them. And so I thought to myself, I want to become Chinese. And of course, when I told the Canadian government that I want to leave the Canadian country, and they thought, first of all, they thought I was kidding. Then they thought I was out of my mind. It took them 8 months to allow me to give up my Canadian passport because China doesn't allow dual nationality. And so I had to give up the Canadian passport, which I know everybody cherished. You know, many Hong Kong Chinese were dying to get a Canadian passport. I thought, you know, I've been in China for so many years. I had my first office 35 years ago in Hunan and Changsha in China. Saw the changes taking place in China. I literally trusted what was going on. And so, you know, by style, I put my money where my mouth is. So I became what I call an egg, you know, white on the outside, yellow on the inside. And basically, that was really the story, and I've never really regretted it. The biggest problem I have is when I go, my passport says Chinese for nationality. So when I go to US or another foreign country, I have to fill out my immigration card, and for a passport, I put Chinese nationality.
Yeah, right.
Immigration officer usually looks at me, he says, "Oh, you're not Chinese." And I look at him and I tell him it's a genetic problem. It's just easier to than explaining. And then, of course, the reverse. When I go to China, there's a, you know, the sign for foreigners or China nationals, and I have to go to China nationals. And no, foreigner, no, China national. So that becomes a whole other thing. And then when I give them my return home card, my Chinese home permit, they look at it many times, they think it's fake. And so they'll call over the supervisor. So that becomes another story. But now with automation, at least I can just feed it into...
What about visas? Isn't there a downside? Don't you have to get a visa for the US,
well,
a visa for Britain?
Well, the best thing was for US, because when I first, you know, before with Canadian passport going to the US, you can literally use your you didn't need your passport, your driver's license. In the old days, you were able to go into the United States. But of course, when I go to US, when I first decided I have to go, I had to get a visa. And so I went to US Embassy and I lined up with everyone. I wasn't used to lining up in the morning, the long line. And then, of course, finally getting inside the US Embassy when you're going to go for an interview. you know, they frisk you. It's like you're going through airport security. You've got to leave your phone, everything, take everything out. Wasn't used to all this. And then luckily, when I got to the immigration officer, I said I need a visa for, you know, for the United States, because I was on the, at that time, board of WIN in the United States. And we used to have to go for board meetings to Las Vegas. And he looked at me, he says, "Oh, you're the guy from Lang Kwai Fong." He's just a young guy. He said, "Yeah, I love Lang Kwai Fong. I go all the time and whatever." I said, "Yeah, that's me." He says, "I saw you in the Tatler magazine." And so he said, "You need a visa?" "No problem." He gave me a 10-year visa.
Oh, that's good.
So
That's good.
I was very fortunate. I walked, that was my lucky day. So it really hasn't inconvenienced me.
That's better than I get. As a British person, we only now get 2 years. But
I
anyway,
see.
anyway, you're ready to talk everything with us, politics and business and
Yes.
anything we care to ask you. So let me just start by asking, because you've been working with Carrie Lam, right?
Yes.
And I want to ask you something that I noticed, because I came back after 10 years, 10 years away living in Spain and India, and I previously lived here for 5 years. Now, 10 years ago, no one talked about separatism, no one talked about Hong Kong independence. You know, it just wasn't an issue. You know, people were sort of slightly annoyed about China from time to time, but it just, this idea of a separate sort of Hong Kong just didn't happen. And I come back and I find a substantial minority of people are talking about this. China's upset, Hong Kong people are upset, especially young people. What on earth happened? What went wrong?
I think that it's not just Hong Kong, but everywhere in the world at the moment. You know, there's a divide in the world between the young and the young generation, the older generation. You know, young generation, 2-year-old, grows up on the internet with this. And technology is really changing the world. And so a young generation looks at things totally different than the older generation. Older generation didn't grow up with technology. Technology is the future, changing the world. We've had many young people, you know, after the handover, after '97, we had 3 chief executives. The first 2, everybody was kind of getting used to. Then the third chief executive came along, and he had his own definite ideas. You know, it's not unlike any other country where it's up to the personality of the president or the chief executive or whoever it is. His personality, although I've worked with CY as I'm on his economic advisory committee, he had a divisive personality, unfortunately. He means well, but sometimes the way it came across. And young people today, of course, were very upset because they want universal suffrage, they want one man, one vote. In the old days, before '97, when the British were here, the governor was appointed by the British. We had no voice on who the governor was, whoever it was. It was, you know, long live the Queen, you know, long live the Queen, long live the governor, and that was it. And so what's happened since post '97, when Chinese were ruling, when locals were ruling, you start to question. And young people today felt that, you know, they didn't have hope. The technology world has really taken over. Rents are very, very high in Hong Kong. Education, many, many problems existed. And so it forced young people, and I work a lot with young people because it is my business, and I see them, I feel very, very bad because they look at the future and many feel Hong Kong, I don't belong in Hong Kong, even though they grow up here. And so obviously, if you're happy with government, you're happy with who's the president, who's chief executive, everything's good. When you're unhappy, you start to look for alternatives. And of course, we had the division within LegCo, where you had the pan-democrats, who many got elected because they were anti-government, and they were able to rouse young people to believe in their cause. You come with me, and I'll get you a home, I'll get you a roof over your head, I'll get you a good job. You know, it just became, Hong Kong changed dramatically. It was always an expensive place, even when I first came here. But I think these are the problems that we're facing today, and everywhere in the world is expensive today, and has created populism we can see in every country, because the unprecedented low interest rate has really caused this problem everywhere, where asset inflation, assets have really appreciated everywhere, and those people that were not in the property market, it's like all the people in the property market are in a boat in the middle of the sea, and those that are not are swimming trying to catch the boat and get onto the boat. But every time they get close to the boat goes further away, the price goes up, and they can't get into the market.
Yeah.
And so this caused a lot of dissension.
Yeah, I mean, I take your economic argument, and similar things have happened in the UK. But isn't there a sort of political aspect to this as well? That didn't China create the very thing it feared, which was separatism, by being heavy-handed and therefore creating this resentment? If it had played a slightly more hands-off role and had been a little bit more diplomatic about the way it dealt with Hong Kong, couldn't they have avoided all this? Wouldn't everybody have just accepted that, you know, things were going along and democracy was slowly being introduced? And
you know, I really think that actually the way it all happened, it was an accident. I think that when Occupy Central really happened, if you go back, social media changed everything, changed the way the police were able to control a situation. You know, the students at that time were upset because the education process and many grievances.
Yeah.
And so some of the students wanted to go over the wall at the time into Government House, break into Government House, as they did in Taiwan and whatever. And the police at that time, there's a methodology that they're able to count how many people in an area and know how many officers they need. But they were not prepared, at that time they weren't trained for social media, whereby kids would be able to call all their friends out and everybody would come. And so the officers in charge at the time really kind of realized that they didn't have enough manpower, and they were trying to avoid, I know they're very bad at PR, but really they were trying to avoid a catastrophe where people, as happens in football matches, where people from the back would be pushing against the wall and more people were coming. And so they had, you know, at that time the senior officer called head office, and they had tear gas at the time, and that was really one of the catalysts which has been used in every single country, and they thought that's the safest way to kind of diffuse the situation. But of course it worked against them, because these were students, and of course parents suddenly say, oh, the police are trying to gas my children. And it caused public opinion to go against the police, who really, I understood, because I spoke to them after, and I understood it all, and I know about crowd control very, very well. In essence, they came out looking very, very bad, and that caused Occupy Central to go for 79 days, longer than the students should ever have done. I was there most of the time. It was like 11, you know, everyone had a different grievance, and everyone just joined in, and so it just took on a life of its own until the public finally got fed up with it, because it was inconveniencing them, and the thing suddenly got broken up. So, you know, I mean, young people today, yes, China then got nervous, because the one thing China wants is stability. China's 1.3 billion people. If China changes quickly and allows instability, it'll be bad for the world. And so I'm in China all the time. I understand the system. I've seen the people's lives in China have really gotten a lot better than it was in the past. Young people, old people, everyone's life is better. They have houses, they have cars, they have, you know, every technology now is changing their life. It's a totally different world. And so what China, last thing they needed is for Hong Kong to create this instability. And suddenly you had these people who were upset about all the tourists coming here into Hong Kong and buying milk powder and all the other things, inconveniencing. They have to wait for MTR for 4 trains instead of 1 train. So they start, you know, pointing fingers, and suddenly it escalates, and then they're kicking Chinese tourists. Some are kicking a suitcase that a Chinese tourist is bringing in, and of course that goes on social media. Could be a few people, which it was. And suddenly, but on social media, it looks like everyone in Hong Kong is against China. And it caused a lot of problems within China, who really started to say, what's going on in Hong Kong? Yeah. And so you can understand when they came down, because universal suffrage was promised to Hong Kong, but it came down with conditions. And I still maintain, and I'll defend this till I'm blue in the face, that the pandemic, LegCo made a mistake by not passing the original universal suffrage vote. By stopping that 831 vote, I really believe it was a step backward, because we went back to 1,200 people electing the chief executive, and I'm one of the 1,200 that's been fortunate from the beginning, but we went backwards. And I always say a baby step forward, and trust would be built between both sides, and then eventually we could slowly change it. But now we're back to square one again.
So here we are back to square one, as
Yeah.
you say. There are political tensions, there are the economic
Yes.
inequalities you've described. So where do we go now? I mean, with this administration, you are an advisor to Carrie Lam, I think. You know, it looks like it's not much fun being in the Hong Kong government, and she's having difficulty getting secretaries and ministers because, you know, you have no popular mandate if you're in the Hong Kong government,
Yes.
and you have no real power because Beijing tells you what to do. So how
And
on
come
earth are
from
you going to
party.
make it work? Or how do you think she can make it work?
I can tell you, it's definitely, the biggest problem is, of course, you can't come from a party, and so you're kind of alone. You're alone in government as chief executive. You know, for Carrie, she's been in government for 35 years. She actually didn't want this job. She was retiring. I was at her going away party. And then suddenly CY decided that because of family reasons, he wasn't going to continue. And so I guess Carrie felt upon herself. I worked with Carrie. I used to be her chairman, was in Ocean Park. She was in HAB at the time, and I worked with her, so I knew her from the Ocean Park days. And then she was my chair lady. I was in West Kowloon for 11 years, and she was the chairman for 6 years. So I worked with Carrie quite closely, and I really got to know her style. I got to know how she thinks, how she works. You know, Carrie, the good thing about Carrie, the reason I agreed to support her, originally, as many of you saw, I was with Regina Ip, and that was before pre-Carrie Lam deciding she was going to run for chief executive. When she decided to go, I kind of switched. And you know, I didn't feel good about it, but I really felt that Carrie could do the job. And John Jung was also my friend. I mean, you know, I'm friends with everyone, Pan-Democrats, pro-Beijing, it doesn't matter. But, and I help them all, I support them all if I can. Because all I care about is Hong Kong being a great country, a great city. And so I went for Carrie because I know that she is having difficulty. It was not what she imagined, putting a cabinet together, and you've seen many in the newspaper now. She's almost done. Maybe some were not what she expected. She approached a lot of people, and a lot of people do not want to go into government because it's difficult. It is difficult. But the people she's put together, she feels comfortable with. And I feel that there's a lot of problems to the polarization in Hong Kong at the moment is still very, very big. But you can see, once CY decided to step down, things seem to have quietened down, except for UGL for the moment.
So what should she do, do you think, or what should her government do? What are the best things they could do to try and make it better?
She's already said that she's going to allocate 5 billion Hong Kong dollars to education, which I believe is very, very important. The education system in Hong Kong really needs an overhaul, needs something, a dramatic overhaul, because even in technology, we're falling behind. We're way, way behind China. China today is the #1 country in the world. I believe Shenzhen today, for those of you that have not gone to Shenzhen, I suggest you go and visit it. That's the Silicon Valley of the world. In China today, no one uses cash or credit cards. We all use the mobile phone for payment. You know, Alipay or WeChat Pay, everything is done. I was there a few weeks ago having lunch, and I didn't have my phone with me. I had to use cash, and I felt kind of, first time in my life that cash really seemed very strange to me, because everyone looked at me like I came from the moon, you know. And Hong Kong is still far behind that. China's moving very, very quickly, so I think we really need to look at different things. Hong Kong will change because two things. We have the XRL, the high-speed rail, coming from Guangzhou to Shenzhen to Hong Kong, 45 minutes from Guangzhou to Hong Kong, 10 minutes from Shenzhen to Hong Kong. The new bridge, if it ever gets finished, between Hong Kong, Macau, Zhuhai, Hengqin Island, opening up the western part, again, it'll be 25 minutes to 30 minutes on the bridge. If you think about it, it's like before I was here, before we had the tunnel between, Cross Harbor Tunnel between Hong Kong and Kowloon. They're like two separate cities. Suddenly the Cross Harbor Tunnel got built, and the connectivity, suddenly everything joined up. I think the borders, I know this might be controversial, as we say, will eventually evaporate because of the high property prices. With infrastructure, we can see when MTR, when in Tuen Mun, for argument's sake, when it's way, there's no MTR and it's too far and people don't want to live there, it's too far to go and all that. Suddenly MTR comes in and everybody's moving out there because it opens up the whole place. So I think this infrastructure, and if you look at all the high-speed rails in China and that connected the cities in China, it's totally changed the dynamics of the way people live. I think it'll really change Hong Kong, whether we like it or not. I think Carrie needs to, she's going to look into education. I think she's already committed that the land is a real problem in Hong Kong, and you're going to have to make some controversial decisions on how, whether it's building in brownfields, looking at land that's held in the new territories by developers for so many years, maybe putting a property tax on it for more than 5 years. There's many different things that can be done. The new territories, the ding houses in the new territories that have been around since Governor Murray McElhoe's decided that was the right way to go. These things need to change. You know, everything, the world is changing, and we can't just sit, and of course some people might get upset, which is normal, but if we don't address these problems and fix these problems, then she won't succeed. I believe that she has the will to do it. We can see what happened with the Palace Museum, and I know she got criticized up and down. I was on West Kowloon at the time, and I don't really want to bring it up again, but at that time, I was one of the three. I was named in LegCo that I knew about it because, she said she was going to do it. And whether the process was right or wrong or how it was done, I look at the end result. What's good for Hong Kong? Will this benefit Hong Kong? How it's done, whatever. Sometimes you have to go into a gray area. When I ran Ocean Park, if I would have done everything that the government wanted to do it according to the government structure, it never would have gotten to where it is. There's gray areas that sometimes you have to make decisions and live by it. And that's what she did with the Palace Museum, which is one of the best museums in the world. Eventually, when it's here, everybody's going to benefit by it. Hong Kong will benefit by it. So the process, yes, is important, but the end result is more important to me than the process. And everybody might not agree with me, but that's what I always feel. I'm bottom line orientated. So she has to make many difficult decisions. She's very well versed in social, she came out of the social networks where she's able to look after those. And the other problem we have an aging population in Hong Kong. And so we have to find ways. Hong Kong needs to become a smart city.
Yeah. And so let me stop you there briefly and say, so that's government. What about business? What does business have to do? What do the wealthy people of Hong Kong have to do? Because they have an enormous responsibility, because they're essentially the ones who decide, with Beijing, who the government is going to be. And as we all know, the wealthy of Hong Kong don't pay income tax or any other tax. So what should the responsibility of the business community be, and what should they do
I
to
can
help
tell you
Hong Kong
something.
work?
I know many people in this room, or many people in Hong Kong, think that it's Beijing that controls everything and the government doesn't make a move
But
without
it's you
Beijing.
guys, right?
It's very wrong.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you, I've been in the government, I'm a private businessman, but I'm also involved in so many government things. It's not always Beijing. Beijing only gets involved when things seem to be going out of whack, and then they get involved to keep the stability. Beijing has got its own problems. They're just happy.
So it's run by the business leaders of Hong Kong,
it's not just
right?
the business leaders. Yeah, some did, some had more influence, but that, as we can see, is really changing in this world where young people, in the old days, yes, you can say Li Ka-shing or some of the tycoons, ran Hong Kong, but it didn't really, it's not the same today. Young people don't look up to the tycoon moniker like we did when we were young. And so it's not really just the tycoons now. In essence, it's political parties. Governments usually are trying to do the right thing to make Hong Kong, listen, no government official really wants Hong Kong to be bad. What's the point?
Sure.
I mean, if you think about it, they really want a better Hong Kong. It's the process. Some have an easier time, some, and it's really about building teamwork, getting the pan-Democrats who have had a loud voice, and I blame the media a lot. Donald Trump says fake news. I don't say we have fake news here, yeah. But I think, if one person says something, of course it's a great story and it's a headline. It's like the independence thing. There's just this very small group of people.
But last question before we open up. I mean, you were telling me how you made $1 million in Canada by the time you were 19.
Yes.
How easy is it for a young Hong Kong guy who has a smart idea to do that in Hong Kong today?
Well,
or girl, or woman.
Technology, technology. Listen, Jack Ma, I sit on the board of Alibaba, and Jack Ma, he went to get a job at Kentucky Fried Chicken. They were hiring 12 people. Now, I don't say, he's not maybe the best looking or whatever, and so when he went to get the job, they wouldn't give him the job, and so he got upset and went with 17 friends into his apartment and came up with this Alibaba idea about online and a platform and B2B and then B2C. And so they got together with no money and got backing from certain people. And today with VC, with venture capitals, it's a totally different world. When I was making my first million, I had to go to a bank and sell them the idea about what I wanted to do, and then I was very responsible to the bank. Today, the young people have a different world mindset, which I think is not right, which hopefully is changing. They go to venture capital companies, round one, they blow through the money. Round two, they blow through the money. Round three, until many VC companies have now gotten burnt and are so now looking at things totally different. But it is very, very easy with the right idea, disruption in every industry, fintech, in your business, media, it's all going online. Everything is, every business, everyone in this room, technology is changing the way we live and the way we have to look at the future. So young people, they understand it inside out. What's coming? AI, artificial intelligence, AR, VR, robotics, AI, all be able to know when you woke up in the morning, what you like to do during the day, what time you like to go to bed. I mean, I
think Google already knows, and Facebook already knows.
But that's all the future, and so you'll be able to gear your product.
Yeah.
So young people will be able to make a lot of money. It's not just like, oh, it's so difficult today. You just have to think out of the box. Okay. And it's always been difficult. Hong Kong, even when I came to Hong Kong, it was not a cheap place. But I was able to scramble some money together to buy my first house, an office, and then house. And then slowly I was able to build up money.
Thank you, thank you, Alan. That's great. And now Alan has very kindly agreed to answer questions on anything at all.
Yeah.
But I have to warn you, he's very good at this because he does a lot of interviews, and he's, So if you ask a question, not only identify who you are and if you have a company who you work for, but try and make sure that he answers your questions. So we open it up to the floor now, and I think there are some microphones here. Yes.
Hi, Allan. Many years ago...
Just identify who you are, sorry. I know who you are, but other people...
Hi, sorry, Victor. I'm Edith Terry, and 12 or 13 years ago, I was the op-ed editor of the South China Morning Post.
Yes, I remember.
And you wrote this brilliant piece projecting about, I think it was 20 years in the future, what a Hong Kong connected with the mainland would be like. And it was all about the Zhuhai Bridge, the high-speed railway, and it was a really rosy vision. I wonder if you see that vision, that vision has changed because of some of the tensions, the social and political tensions.
So was it fulfilled? Was the rosy vision fulfilled, basically? Yeah.
Yes. I mean, basically, has my vision changed? It has and it has not. Obviously, at that time, I wasn't counting on the polarization that we have today. And, you know, in English, there's a saying, united we stand, divided we fall. And Hong Kong has really been divided the last number of years. And we've kind of been standing still. I'm in China almost every week doing with different projects. I see what is going on in China. I see the changes. I see the life of people getting better. People that don't know, and I believe a lot of Hong Kong people really don't understand China, don't know China. You know, is the glass half empty or half full? You want to look at the negative side or you want to look at the positive side? My life, I've always been a positive person. I always look at the bright side. You know, the world could be crashing around me. I always see some light at the end of the tunnel. If any of you in this room want to be successful, you should do exactly the same thing. I mean, it's easy to be pessimistic. It doesn't cost more money to be optimistic. And it's important for Hong Kong people to really start to understand that our future lies with China. Yes, now there's this new moniker, Belt and Road, and the new Bay Area, which, you know, Hong Kong being the super connector in the Belt and Road. Now, 66 countries are buying into the Belt and Road. And this is something that, you know, the old Silk Road has suddenly been reinvented. And what does it do? Whether it happens or it doesn't happen, it's going to happen right now. Because China, you can see every country in the world is bending over backwards to do business with China, to come into China. It's a different China. China in the world today, Xi Jinping, I sit on ABAC, which is a part of APEC, you know, the business side of APEC. And President Xi has become the free trader of the world when Donald Trump is suddenly going for protectionism. You know, we all know protectionism can't work, never has. And so countries are now looking at China totally different. And it's time for Hong Kong people to really wake up and really understand. Otherwise, China doesn't need us. They need us, but they don't. We're only 7.2 million people. You know, they've got 1.3 billion people. And they've got a great future ahead of them with everything that they're doing. And so they continue to impress me. If I was a dummy, I would look at what's going on and say, oh, China's bad and everything they do. Yes, people want the same freedom to have universal suffrage in China. Personally, it'd be the biggest mistake at this time in China's career. I look at the United States and I look at the election that just took place in the United, you know, and everyone was saying, the pandemics were all saying, oh, the US and the system and UK. And, well, I look at the US and Donald Trump is the president today, who I know for 45 years. And actually, he got 3 million popular vote less than Hillary Clinton, yet because of the Electoral College, because of the system, he wound up being the president. So is that the right system, the wrong system? You know, there is no right system. UK has Brexit. You know, every country has their own system. Hong Kong needs to establish, the same with China, at the right time, needs to establish its own system, which works for Hong Kong. And the first system might not be right, but slowly you start to maneuver and tinker with it, and you make it right, as you do in business, as you do in your life. You know, many times people have problems with their family, and you have to just give a little, you know, with your kids and try to understand them and that kind of thing. So I'm saying, do I see a rosy future? I still see a rosy future. And I think because of these things, and hopefully Carrie will be able to present, you know, the last 5 years have been difficult for everyone. And hopefully Carrie will have a new beginning if she's given a chance. And the only way she can have a chance if people get behind her. And every decision she makes might not be popular, but she is who we have, and it's up to her, it's up to us to make her right. Same as myself. I was in her campaign, I was a special advisor for her, and trust me, it was not easy for many times because she's never run for chief executive. There was no training for that. But at the end, she won, and she defeated John Jung, and it's not because of China or whatever. There was a good chance, trust me, we had no idea we were going to get the votes that we got. And it wasn't just because of China or whatever, because the Pan Democrats had a lot of votes. And so there was a good chance that she would not have made it. But so I honestly believe that it's really up to us to create a great future ahead.
Thanks, Allan. Some other questions? Anybody else? Yes, the table through there, if somebody could pass a mic. Yeah.
Yeah, Lynn Grebstad, GHC Asia. Just a question for Allan. I would just like to ask you, why does everything in Hong Kong take so long to realize? The West Kowloon, the Central Police Station, white elephants like the cruise terminal get put up really quickly. Why do we have to wait so long for these sort of lifestyle projects to come about?
You've obviously never lived in India.
Just comparing Hong Kong with Singapore, for instance. Singapore
you're
has an idea, it gets it done. Why does Hong Kong take so long?
Absolutely right. And I have the same complaint. Listen, I've sat on West Kowloon for 11 years and until I moved on, you know? It's a very good question. And all the infrastructure projects, why do they take so long? Basically, I believe because it's been the slowness of the system within government. The one thing I like about Carrie, she was no nonsense. West Kowloon got moving, really, when Carrie came on board as chairlady. I mean, before that, we were listening so much to public opinion. We had the chief executives from overseas because that was the thing to do, the right thing, and I worked with all of them. Most of them didn't understand the culture, didn't understand anything, just didn't fit in, and everything got stuck. I was on the front page of Bloomberg a few years ago, and in one of the interviews I said Hong Kong is stuck. And I was on the front page, I had my tongue sticking out with Hong Kong is stuck. You know, and basically, we are in that respect. Carrie, the reason Carrie maybe was not so popular within many of the people within government are retiring or are leaving government. Why? Because when Carrie has over the years in government, she's a tough boss. She demanded things which I liked, which I respected, because I really saw the way we got West Kowloon moving. And now, I know many people don't even know what's coming, but the Zichu Center, the Cantonese Opera Theatre, will be open hopefully next year or maybe end of this year. The M+ Museum is under construction, the Lyric Theatre, the Arts Place, many things are happening. And suddenly everybody's going to say, wow. And they're great buildings. It'll change Hong Kong itself, but people don't know about it. And really, I put it down to Carrie. And that's why I've worked with her. I've seen it happen. And she knows her way. Being within government is very difficult because anything you want to do, everyone has to buy into it. And it goes through the process. To me, government needs to be totally automated. Because of technology, I would throw all the systems out, even from BD onwards, where in building department, everything is they still have records from the old days piled up. If you go to building department, they're still sitting with records. Everything should be with big data. Everything, we should be at the forefront. Singapore leaves us well behind in that respect. Well, because the kind of people they have within government, they pay very well. It's run more like Singapore Inc., like a business rather than a political. And again, you don't have the political universal suffrage mode in Singapore. You have, but it's a
technically
hybrid.
You do. You better not say that to.
No, I don't want to say it, but
but
you're right.
No, I know. I'm journalist.
No, I know. Technically, you do.
Yes,
so
technically you do,
Hong
yes,
Kong
yeah.
has it as well. You could say, So I'm just trying to compare the two. I'm saying that at the end of the day, Hong Kong needs to change, and hopefully it's up to leadership. It's like a company. If you have a great leader in a company, the company moves forward. If you have a so-so leader, no matter how good the people are within the company, it doesn't go anywhere. So I'm hoping that Hong Kong will continue, and then we can cut out a lot of this delay.
Thanks. Any more from the yes, gentleman there, and then Lane has a question. Yep. across the table, yeah.
Chris Potts, solicitor. This may sound like a very obtuse question, but I'm a dog lover. I believe that Hong Kong purports to be a dog and generally pet-friendly city.
Yes.
I see wherever, or almost wherever, I try to take the dog, signs are being stuck up in parks, etc., and there's a plethora of authorities responsible for sticking up these signs, I suspect often
Yes.
without any original thought. How do I go about cutting through the red tape to make Hong Kong a more dog-friendly city?
I think, you know, I happen to agree with you. First of all, I like your hairstyle. We have something in common. Yeah. Basically, you know, listen, people who love dogs, you know, they come from a certain breed, you know, and I can understand because, you know, many of the people within government come from a different world, a different era, and you know, those are the kind of things that need to be changed. Hong Kong needs to become a more livable city. We need more green space, more open space, more space where people, we have country parks, you know, the big problem.
But government departments, when they build sitting out areas and parks, you know, they deliberately ban trees that have leaves because they say, no, the only trees they like are palm trees.
Trust me, I've been through it in Lan Kwai Fong.
Right?
I've been through it in Lan Kwai Fong.
I mean,
know,
it's weird.
because
like
it's easier.
Yeah,
It's easier to sweep away, to put a
Concrete.
sign.
Concrete
Then I
is
don't
easier.
have anybody complaining that the dog, there was dog poo in the park and I was going for a walk and I write a letter to the government and complain. That's the biggest problem. I believe it's a mentality that needs to change. Hong Kong needs to become a much more livable city. We have a beautiful city. We have wonderful country parks. We have great places, but the problem is, it's, you know, it's exactly what you're saying. In West Kowloon, we have a huge park right on the water, and we actually, originally, one of the government departments wanted to put those signs in. The good thing was, the chief executive said no. We're not going to put it there. You can bring your dogs and stay there overnight to do whatever you want. We want to encourage more people. And I think for Hong Kong people, the better lifestyle we can present for Hong Kong people, the less marching you're going to have every Saturday and Sunday, and the less grievances you'll have.
I mean, there's a related question as to why one of the world's wealthiest cities is so bad at environmental issues. You know, it was only recently that we had sewage treatment. Recycling is almost non-existent. Yeah. It's an unbelievably, I mean, you think how advanced Hong Kong is as a city and how rich it is.
Because, Victor, honestly, because in the old days, it was government had a hands-off policy. Everything was not government-led. Everything was hands-off. You know?
Right, which means it was business-led, right?
It was business-led.
Yeah, and they
in the old days, under Donald Tsang, you know, and that was just the system. Today, we realize, and if you've seen Tung Chi Wah and some of the people are suddenly realizing that maybe that system is not the right system at this time.
For a livable city.
For a livable city, it needs to be government-led. And that's something that's very, very important. I think that's going to change. I think, hopefully we'll see that.
Yeah. Elaine has a question.
Thank you. Elaine Pickering, Vision 2047 Foundation. Considering the club that you're in, what would you say to the correspondents and journalists amongst us about how we do with regard to reporting on what's happening in Hong Kong?
I think that in general, we're quite fortunate here. I think in general, depending on who the newspaper is, you know, newspapers are very, very competitive in Hong Kong. We're a very small population, and between Chinese press and the foreign press, the English press, it's different. And as we well know, some newspapers do make up fake news in order to sell newspapers, or they think it's okay and they don't really check on all the facts. I've seen it happen many, many times. Or an editor will just take one paragraph out of an interview and then have that as a headline, and you know, and I understand it helps to sell media, it helps to sell newspapers, but I think in general, Hong Kong journalists are pretty responsible. I do a lot of media, as you well know, both in Chinese and foreign. But I think they're pretty fair in general. And it depends the relationship you have with them. For me, I've always been media friendly. I've always been approachable. They have my mobile number. They can call me if they have a problem, because I understand they have a job to, they're working for a job same as all of us in this room. So they have a story to get for their editors, and so I understand it. So I make myself approachable to them. Yet some people, if you say media, they just run away.
Yeah.
And so that causes problems, and sometimes
if I can answer Elaine's question,
Yeah.
the simple answer is we should tell the truth, and we shouldn't self-censor because we're worried about government or anybody else.
No, absolutely.
It's definitely true that the space in Asia is narrowing for free journalism. A lot of places where it was previously easy, like Thailand, it's not easy anymore. And in fact,
Different
Taiwan
government.
and Hong Kong are
Yeah.
two of the last places where
Yeah.
you can actually report with very, very little restriction. And we need to preserve that, because there are always signs that freedom is being
And
constrained. You know?
Victor, I agree with you, because the good thing about Hong Kong, you can say what you want, you can carry whatever placard you want, and you can report what you want. One of the few places left.
A gentleman there, yes, Owen, we've got lots of
Yeah.
questions now, suddenly, and then Kinming, and then we haven't got much more time, so...
No, I'm okay
yeah.
for a little bit.
Hi, Robert Walzer with the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
Hi, Alan. I just wanted to hone in on your comment about the borders evaporating at some point once this
Figure of
infrastructure.
speech.
Well, I know, but
Yeah.
there's something important there as well in terms of preserving the system, the one country, two system.
Systems.
How much do you think that threatens that, and how much might that erode as a result of this interconnectivity that you're talking about? And will it happen before 30 years is up? Do we still have our 30 years,
Yeah.
or is it going to start?
No, I mean, when I said that, what I really mean is one country, two systems will remain. It's been a very, very successful experiment. No country has ever done it, and I really feel that one country, two system is very, very strong here in Hong Kong and will continue. I think when I said the borders will evaporate, it's like I mentioned, when you have infrastructure that brings places together, many people, let's say when the bridge gets built, some people living in a 250 square foot shoebox apartment, condominium, will suddenly go to Zhuhai and see that they can get a 1,200 square foot apartment overlooking the sea and pay the same rent or similar rent than they're paying here. And so suddenly the husband's going to say to his wife, honey, maybe it's a good idea. Why don't we just try it? You know, we can double our space and have a better life. Slowly, and then they come out, and then on the weekend the friends come out and say, honey, look at them. Well, how come look where we're living? Why don't we do it? So suddenly things start changing, as happened within Hong Kong, whereby the new territories, one place, or places out like Yuen Long, people didn't want to move there, and suddenly it got populated as things become more expensive here. So organically, what I mean is organically, and then you have many mainland people moving to Hong Kong as well. So the integration, whether we like it or not, is happening. And it's not a problem. And when I say the borders evaporate, I don't mean they're going to go away. But today, with technology coming in the future, I believe you're going to have facial recognition. You won't have to put your thumb down. You'll be able to go through borders with AI, with all the new technology coming. So the border will become seamless. Is what I mean. You'll still have to go through a border. And I believe that within 30 years from now, when 2047 rolls around, I believe China's life is also coming up, and I believe both systems will probably be not too far away at that time, and maybe it'll be a different thing. 30 years is a long time in today's world.
More like them, or them more like us?
Well, I hope it's a hybrid of both. I still love Hong Kong, and I still think we have a lot to offer.
Kin Ming Liu,
Yes.
former journalist. Very quick question.
No
Is
problem.
it true that you never read a book? Thank you.
That was in an interview the other day, right?
In the book.
Yes.
It's actually true. I mean, from a very young age, I just never ever could concentrate on reading a book. I read 6 or 7 newspapers every day, and that's something that I really enjoy doing. But reading books, just my style, I've always felt I don't want to read somebody else's experiences. I just love to experience it myself and learn on my own. And so it is true. Although if you come to my office, I've got piles of books on the floor that are all
Picture
given to me,
books? Not
sent
even
to me.
picture books?
Huh?
No, not even picture books?
No, I just generally can't get into it. For me, it's the same as film. I'm in the film business. I haven't seen a film in many, many years. And I've got a library of 75 films in the U.S.
As a journalist, I'm delighted that you read 6 or 7 newspapers a day.
That I do.
As a book author, I'm very upset because I won't be able to sell you my book.
But I want to tell you, I'm
Yeah.
reading online now, more and more online.
That's okay for journalism and for books.
Yes.
The last question, lady here, sorry. Can only just see.
Well, I can go for one or two more.
Hello, I'm Celine Rideout. My question may sound a little bit personal, but I'm curious about your decision to take up Chinese citizenship. Because I know that you mentioned you've been in Hong Kong or Asia for more than 50 odd years, and presumably mostly Hong Kong. And so I know all the benefits coming in only a Hong Kong passports, traveling privileges and all that. So why Chinese citizenship particularly?
Again, as I said earlier, I honestly feel I've done so much for Hong Kong. I really do feel I belong here. I don't have another home. My children grew up here. They went to school here. I've always felt these are my roots. My roots were in Hong Kong. As you see, I've been involved in government. I've been involved in private business. I've been involved in doing things to make Hong Kong a better place. And so I just felt after so many years, I'm in I hope not the final stages of my life, but I mean the last part. And I just felt at this point in my life, it just makes sense to really bless to give it the right blessing, and really to say that I really do feel Chinese. I mean, I might have a white face, but I do feel Chinese.
Thank you. Alan's given us a very short reprieve, so we can have one final one here. I saw this gentleman's hand up earlier.
Angus Forsyth, I'm a solicitor in Hong Kong. A little more personal thing. In your stewardship of Ocean Park, did you take a direct interest in animal welfare?
Absolutely. As you can see, when I was chairman of Ocean Park, again, when I became the chairman of Ocean Park, I knew very little about animals. I mean, if you told me what a dolphin looked like or anything, I knew pictures of pandas, but I didn't really know what they looked like. We had a very, very strong team within Ocean Park, which I was very, very proud of, because in the world, they're recognized as really animal welfare people. We're always looking at, the idea of Ocean Park was not just about entertainment, but it was education. We called it edutainment, making education entertaining, so people could really understand about bring animals closer to nature, especially in a place like Hong Kong, where we don't have a lot of outdoor space, and people maybe would never be able to see these animals and the importance of the of the ecosystem in the world. And this gave, I can't tell you how many school children we had and classrooms we have at each attraction, so that we had people that were always teaching them, training them, and it was something I was very, very proud of. And I can honestly say to you, of course, you're always going to have detractors. You're always going to have people that feel that, oh, you shouldn't be keeping dolphins, or you shouldn't be keeping this animal or that. It's same as in politics. You always have the right side and the left side. You've got, and so I learned to live with it. I try to make friends with them, and I tried to understand, and I made decisions not to bring in whale sharks at the time, which we had in the plan, and even I went to, or polar bears, because I felt it wasn't the right thing. Hong Kong wasn't the right climate for polar bears, and so even though we had sold it and everyone agreed, I said no. I said let's, and trust me, I had a lot of aggravation about it, but because you're going to let the anti animal rights people, you're going to let them win. It's not about winning. For me, it's about doing what you feel is the right thing. At the end of the day, I urge everyone in this room, if you believe in something, you believe strongly in it, then go for it. Nike has a saying, just do it. I always say follow Nike. Just do it. So with that.
Thank you. Good note to end on.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Oh, I have to give you something. Alan, we're very grateful to you. And I have to...
You have to give me something?
Do I take it out of the bag? bag, or
No.
do I leave it in the bag?
I hope
Here you
it's
go.
I hope it's cash. I hope it's cash. But being FCC, I'm sure it's not.
There you go.
It's allowed.
You're allowed to accept it within the bounds, and you get the special FCC notebooks.
Oh my God.
Which are,